2000, or was said to have happened, a lot of people say, oh yeah, that happened. But if they saw the same thing happen down the street today, or someone told them the same thing happened down the street today, they wouldn't accept it. In fact, they would think the person speaking to them about that given thing was ready for the loony bin. So people you will put into the loony bin today, yesterday you'll be in total awe. I don't want to give any examples, but I think you know what I mean. Well, I'll give you one. If I were to tell you, oh, by the way, you know Jimmy Boy down on Baker Street, he just turned water into wine. I mean, you would look at me like I was a lunatic and that I deserved to be put on the way. And if a person came down and you were in one of the cafeterias there, and they came up to you, you know, on the way to school today I saw an exorcism. Or I saw, you know, there was a tie-up on the freeway and some guy was taking swine and getting the evil spirit out of them and running them up a hillside. I mean, you think, this guy, I got to get away from this guy. You know, he's coming on to me too strong. That's what I mean to say about realism and not realism. These are good elements, and they may be attractive in terms of making the thing more attractive and more impressive. But they may not be historical elements. They may not be realistic elements. It took me 30 years to understand that. Because for 30 years I tried to sort of deal with some of those things in different religious documents. I remember I traveled all the way to India, hitchhiked to India back in the early 60s, before all the hippies got there. And the first thing I did was take my glasses off and throw it into the Bay of Bombay. Because I said to myself, I don't need glasses anymore. God will see for me. And my eyes are going to get strengthened because of my great faith. And, you know, I've done all this, I've achieved all this, I got all the way to India on the road, I didn't get killed or anything like that. Now I don't need these glasses. I don't need to be four eyes anymore. Of course, you can get an operation and get your retina cut and everything and it'll all be fixed up or different things like that. But, or you can get contact lenses or stuff like that. So it annoyed me to have these glasses on constantly. Well, guess what happened? I blundered around India for about 2 months, blind as a bat, and then my eyes only got worse. Now that's not a very inspiring story, is it? It'd be much more inspiring if I threw the glasses in the Bay of Bombay, and after that, miraculously, I could see everything, wouldn't it? But I just give that as a story of maybe say, well, you weren't enough of a man of faith, Professor Eisenman. That may be one way of looking at it. On the other hand, I think actually what I told you is the stuff of truth, unfortunately. I mean, day-to-day truth, not daily religious truth. The other thing are the embellishments of art. What the art or the storyteller does to increase the impressiveness of a certain presentation. And it took me 30 years to realize that, in fact, I had to approach these things differently because these things didn't happen in my life. Things that were being written about, they weren't happening. They weren't happening. And so I had to make a distinction between religious documents and real events. Most people do it really early in life, but I was a child in that case. Anyway, let's get back to where we were about this movie and its somewhat childish aspects to it, its feel-good aspects, its lack of realism. I did want to say one more thing about this asabiya, or this solidarity. The thing that causes, I think, resentment is just this tribal feeling that people have, that this attachment that they get to something that is deeper and not really understandable. Their parents, their ancestors, what their parents represented, what the culture their parents inherited, what their parents then transmitted to you, or to us, or to me. These are the things, as I say, that if someone says the least thing touching upon it that sounds like it's challenging or negative, resentment, other things bubble up. So there's something we have to kind of struggle, and I don't think we have to do it much in this class. I have other classes that's much more important. But in this particular movie, what is the cultural ambiance that defines the solidarity? Well, it's this village. It's this village and the loyalty that these people feel to this village. And then, as I said, the bean field as a symbol of the fertility of the culture and the society of that village. So, for instance, when the beans are growing and the water is flowing and everything is in harmony, then everyone loves each other. So at the end of the movie, everybody's kissing, everybody is happy, all the relationships are being consolidated because everything is fertile, and you get this whole idea of the fertility of the society depending on the fertility of the ground. I think this is an old religious idea going back certainly in the Southwest, but almost everywhere around the world, to shamans, religious figures who had some effect on the land. What's a shaman? A shaman is a kind of charismatic religious figure. He or she doesn't really have to be a member of a specific religion as such. He's just a she's just a charismatic figure that arises out of a cultural group that people focus on as having insight, or their well-being spreads out into the culture's well-being. I'm not sure if we have a shaman in this movie. We have a weird assortment of shamanesque figures. The woman who's running the protest campaigns, the bean field cultivator, though he doesn't really inspire a lot of spiritual awe, does he? It's really, I guess, the two old men are the most curious, religiously involved figures in the movie. The two old men with whom the movie begins and ends.
Also, the sheriff brings peace.
He's a peace, the sheriff. Yeah, he's probably the strongest, though he doesn't get much of a role in the movie.
No, but he keeps it down.
Yeah, he
has control.
He does, and he finally signs the petition and demonstrates his solidarity with the whole cultural group. That's a good point, thank you. What about the two old men, though? What were their names? Well, Amarante is one. Do you remember, I don't know do you remember what the other guys, I don't know if I can spell these things. Any Spanish